Do you hear that? The sounds of spring. There's the birds, the spring breeze blowing through the leaves, and the Ryobi Whisper Series blower. And that's the new Ryobi Whisper walk mower. And there's the Ryobi Whisper Series string trimmer, all with interchangeable lithium-ion batteries and gas-like power. It feels like spring at the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
Hey everybody, welcome to Public Access America's Just the Tip.
It's just simply, once people know somebody that has a little bit of a say-so or is seen as having a little bit of power or whatever, is watching what they're doing, they do it right. And
yes, accountability,
I absolutely believe there's a place for the people that are outside on bullhorns, screaming and yelling, climbing whatever, doing all of those things. I absolutely believe in their right and that there's a place for that. But I have chosen, because of my lived experience, to look out for the people that are still caught up in these systems that we're going after. Agreed. And to help make a change from the inside. And I don't think that we should be at war with each other because I'm not doing it your way or you're not doing it my way. As long as our end goal is the same, right? Like we're all trying to get to the same destination. We're just taking different routes.
Right.
Yep.
And that's okay.
It is time now for something positive.
We might be headed to the promised land, of speaking the truth and finding our external liberty once we internally liberate ourselves.
The problem can only be solved when there is a kind of coalition of conscience.
Because that is how it works. This is the beginning, it is not the finale, and that's why we're here, and that's why we rally.
We've got to be that creative minority.
Find a way to get in the way. I got in trouble. It was good trouble. It was necessary trouble.
Frankly, I know we've got to do something.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Public Access America. My name is still Jason. His name is still Jeffrey. And we're here every week to talk about the week. And this week, we have just a great friend and guest joining the show all the way from Pennsylvania. In fact, more specifically, all the way from District 182 in Pennsylvania. And we're just going to talk about what's going on in Pennsylvania and in the races there and have some fun, have an open discussion and get to know just a candidate that I discovered on Twitter at Public Access Pod. We retweet Emily's List pretty heavily because we support Emily's List. Go support them. And we had a tweet pop up and it was Deja. And I read everything. I learned everything. And I was just so excited. Hi, Deja. I'm sorry. I don't want to keep you waiting. Why don't you introduce yourself a little better than I can? And then let me know what's top of mind for you this week.
Hi, Jason. Hi, Jeffrey. Good morning. Well, it's afternoon now for everybody, for those that are listening. My name is Deja Alvarez. I am currently running for state representative in Pennsylvania, the 182nd district, which encompasses most of Center City, Philadelphia.
Okay.
I am a very proud trans Latina woman. I've been running this race. Actually, my 1-year anniversary of when I announced just passed.
Wow.
And so been in this race for a year now, and we have about 2 weeks left before the primary election. And so we're trying to finish strong. Of course, we're trying to win. So,
of course, yeah.
And if elected, I will be the first trans person in the Pennsylvania legislator, and then I will be the first trans Latina legislator in the nation.
And I'm excited to have you here. I was looking at your resume and it has more acronyms than Jeffrey has degrees. So I was super excited about that. That's the problem, is I never know where to start with somebody with so many accomplishments. You are such an amazing advocate, and I appreciate that. So I appreciate candidates like you, and I'm just so amazed. So amazed to have you here. Jeffrey, did you have any questions to start off?
No, I want to jump in with Deja and find out what's top of mind. And then of course, let's get this rolling. I mean, I definitely will have some questions, but
Me too.
let's see where things go organically first.
Okay. So what's top of mind for me right now?
Well,
One, I'm a little tired. So I work 3 jobs. I work, 2 during the week and then 1 on the weekend. So I usually get home about 4 a.m. on Friday and Saturday morning. And Saturday and Sunday morning, technically. Let me switch that around. So top of mind is there's 2 weeks left in the election. There's so much to do, so much we're trying to get done to make sure that we win this race. And like you had pointed out, like looking at the work that I've done, the advocacy that I've done, you look at all that, and that's not what you would think of when you think of a politician, because we live in a country that kind of sends out the message that you have to be a certain breed of person. You have to be born into a certain family, come from a certain background, have gone to very specific schools, and then have had specific jobs interning for this one and that one and the other one. You're
what I dream of when I think of a representative.
Thank you.
Not a politician, by the way, but like a representative.
Oh, right, exactly. And that's the difference, is that I'm not a politician. When I got into politics, it happened organically through all of the work that I've done, building relationships, helping marginalized communities. And through all of that, I built a lot of relationships with politicians. Some I completely aligned with and became good friends with. Some I don't align so much with them, but it's still good to have that relationship, because sometimes they can help you get things done that need to be done for people that need it. And so I had some of them start to say, when are you going to run for office? And I would always laugh, because I'd be like, wait a minute, hold on, me run for office? I curse, I drink, I'm very open about my history, who I am, where I'm from, what my experiences have been. I've done survival sex work, and, I've done drugs, and I've done all these things. Usually politicians don't admit to any of that until they're in court after they're elected. And so
it's true.
This is a new age, and people are learning to be super positive about their past, because it's the struggle that people are relating to, Yes,
and that's the problem. We don't have enough people, not even running in my race. And I'll say this openly, the people running in my race, they don't know what real issues are. They don't know what marginalized communities truly experience. They do a lot of talking about it, and they know how to use the key words and the key phrases. Mm-hmm. But I want to know, what is your lived experience? And then what work have you done to help change those situations for other people that have similar experiences? And so I will put my resume up against anyone's. Unfortunately, that's an uphill battle, especially being a woman, being trans, that people just, she's just an advocate. She's just an activist, or, she's just a community leader. And it's like, well, actually I am. One, I'm not just a community leader. I'm out here fighting for all marginalized communities. Don't box me into the trans community or the LGBTQ community, because my work goes way beyond that.
You're an advocate in health. You're an advocate in healthcare in a way that people don't give you enough credit for currently.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. My experience working in public health, all of the issues there. Yeah. Everybody talks about healthcare as one of the key issues. Who's actually done the work? And, that gets a little frustrating sometimes. And that's okay to be frustrated. It is what it is. And we just recently, here in Philadelphia, we had an incident at one of our LGBTQ owned and operated bars, where a bouncer that is subcontracted through a security company punched somebody who was outside, who had just been put out of the club for being too drunk. And that punch ended up with that young man dying. And so everybody is on, everybody runs the social media, and they give their opinion, or they give their thought, or their criticism, or, whatever. And I haven't yet. I haven't said anything about it yet, but I've been doing the work behind the scenes, because one thing about me is that I don't jump on bandwagons. I'm not reactionary. I breathe. I take a minute. I try to talk with everybody involved so that I can figure out exactly what happened before I get involved to see how I can help. And so like now I'm getting called out on social media. Oh, at Deja for PA hasn't said anything. She, what kind of leader that's connected to the community hasn't responded to this? And I had an event there apparently right after the incident happened, but the incident wasn't public yet. And so they're talking about that. And my thing is this, that as a leader, you're not a follower. See, there's a difference between leaders and followers. Followers see somebody else post something, they start posting stuff. Everybody's talking and making a thing out of a situation, and they don't even know the facts. Mm-hmm. Or they also don't recognize that when you do something like that, what kind of harm it can cause.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, but we love to be the first ones to be right. Like yes, we saw it before everybody else. I knew Steely Dan was a thing before Steely Dan was a thing.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And so even my comms manager is like, we got to get a statement out. I said, calm down. I'm not reactionary. I have a meeting as soon as we hang up from here. I have a meeting with the owner of the club and some of the protesters, people that had gone out and protested them. I set that up. I've been in talks with the security company that employed the young Black man that threw the punch. What people aren't thinking about is that when we do stuff like this, it affects so many lives, not just the victim. It's horrific what happened to him. He lost his life. Now a family is forever affected. Now a family of the person that threw the punch is forever affected. Mm-hmm. Now we have a bar that employs a lot of people, including Black and brown people. They do a lot of like drag shows and they employ a lot of the trans community there, and people make their living there. But people aren't thinking about that. While everybody's calling for a boycott, they're not thinking that you're putting Black and brown people out of work, which is the last thing we can afford to do in this country. Mm-hmm. While they're calling for the security company to be fired, everybody break their contracts with them. This security company employs several hundred Black and brown people. Now, do we put all of them out of work because what one did? And so
they just came out of a pandemic. We're just coming out of a pandemic. We're just finally getting out there again.
Absolutely. And as someone who is seen as a leader, I act as a leader. You want to pay attention. My opponent wrote this thing on Facebook, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. They wrote this thing on Facebook. I'm busy behind the scenes on the phone, meeting with people, trying to figure out how do we not correct it, but how can we move forward in an empathetic, compassionate way while also making sure that we don't end up putting a bunch of people out of work, particularly Black and brown people.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest issues that, especially we hear this a lot from the right side, is everybody's out to just try and get their thing on the media. And the media really does contort a lot of things because, as we've talked about on here, outrage sells eyeballs.
Yes.
And oftentimes, especially having worked in civil and criminal defense, these things are so much more nuanced than, the 10-second sound clip that somebody's going to play and then, eventually write this long tweet or Facebook post about. Mm-hmm. Right. And so, realistically, is it awful that a human life was lost? Yes.
Absolutely.
It's terrible. But at the same time, too, it's like, if you don't stem the outrage, there's going to be a lot more loss than just one life. Yes. And I don't mean that as just one life, because that life was precious, but there's going to be a lot more fallout. And having somebody actually work behind the scenes and try to bring community together is far more important than just making sure that your 10-second post is out there on the ether to get forgotten in 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And some bouncer is going to hold himself accountable for the rest of his life for that. That's what we said about Kyle Rittenhouse. In the end, alone in the dark, he's going to suffer his pains. And that's an issue. And he's going to adjust for that. That bouncer's never going to do that again. And nobody he knows will ever do that. And that's the accountability portion. It has to come from the point of contact on up. And then Deja's involvement to just be a neutral sort of listening board and sounding board, because breaking news solutions save lives, right? There's your organic viral moment. And those
true.
things, not all of that happens in public. And so,
yeah, see, there are the people that post on their social media breaking news, and then but they're not the people that are actually doing the work. They're the people looking for that little 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 seconds to get that attention, and they're not concerned with, as you mentioned before, the fallout from this. So who's going to be affected if we continue moving in the direction that we're going right now? And that's going to be a lot of innocent people that need jobs, that have to support families, that have to pay their rent, that have to feed themselves. And I'm not somebody that's reactionary. I learned over the years that when something like this happens, you have to step back for a moment, take a breath, think it through, and then start moving forward. Right. And unfortunately, we live in a time where a lot of people are like people were sending me the posts yesterday. They were like, look at this, you should respond. I'm like, I'm not responding to that. I don't have to respond. People saying, oh, someone who's supposed to be so connected. I have 2 decades worth of work to show how connected I am to the community. I don't have to prove it to them.
Right. There you go. And that's and what do most of these other people have in terms of connection to the community? How many of them have actually been a part of or actively been there as an advocate or an ally?
Change at all?
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. It's really frustrating because you see this constantly. Oh, I'm so connected to the community, and then you'll vote these people in, and then they actively do things that you're like, I thought you were connected to this community. If you were, you would know that this is what we need, not whatever you're doing over there.
Compromise for the longer, better good. We're going to compromise on this point to get progress later.
Yeah, well, that's the problem is that if the compromise is I'm going to do whatever I want and thanks for voting for me, that's not compromise.
Exactly. The compromise is I want the attention, I want the soundbite, I want the acknowledgement, I want all of this, but I haven't put in the work to do that. I had news outlets contacting me, all through last week, and I know a lot of them, so I took their call, but I said, I'll have to get back to you because right now I don't have a comment. Right. And it's because I'm not going to, everybody is already saying, oh, this is terrible. We have to do something. We have to. Why do you need one more person saying that?
Yeah.
You don't. What you need is someone working towards a solution. That's what
I wish the chorus was solutions. People saying, why can we try this? Can we fund this? Can we do more of this instead of, So my initial thought was, can we have like a lounge area for people that are too drunk waiting for a ride home so that they're not the bouncer's responsibility outside? But that was just initially without even examining the situation. Yeah. But if you had 100 people offering solutions like that, you would have a better choice than who to listen to about their outrage and anger.
Yeah. Exactly.
And a lot of times,
so that's what was on my mind today.
Hey,
a lot of politicians are really good on Twitter stating something, but then if you ask them, and then what, they never respond. So what I do appreciate is you as a candidate coming here, because I believe there's a connection that needs to be made between representative and represented, and that's the communication thing. And so I really appreciate you being here. I don't know how to express that we're a friendly, fun audience. We just want to meet the people that are going to be representing us. And so there's a key phrase that's coming out, and I don't know who's starting it, but constituency interaction engagement is just this amazing thing. How are you? And what I always want to know is, how do you want the people that are voting for you to communicate with you once you are in office? What's the best way to go through the process instead of just going on Twitter and saying, fix my problem? You didn't fix my problem. How do you actually want to engage with people?
I want to be around. I want to be available just like I am now. Listen, on any given day, I'm walking down the street and I run into people. They're like, wait, and I'm like, but I'm here all the time. I'm at all the restaurants. I'm at the bars. I'm walking down the street. I'm going to the park. I'm doing the same thing that everybody else is in community. And I think that that's important too. I want people to Yeah, they're going to have to call the office. Yes, they're going to have to, you know, depending on what the issue is, whether it's something they need to talk with me about, or whether it's one of my staff is going to be able to, you know, get them what it is that they need. And one of the things that I've already built with my campaign staff who is going to go into office with me is that constituency services is a priority. And what I want is to make sure that we are a resource. So a lot of people don't know the difference between like what a state rep can do versus a city council person versus, you know, somebody else. But what I want to make sure that my office does is that we have those resources and those connections. So even if it's not something we can do, we don't just say, well, here's a number, call them. We say, okay, so here's who can actually help with that. We will reach out to them first. We will then make that connection for you. And then we will also follow up to make sure that you got the help that you needed afterwards. And when you call or you send an email to the office, it will be a 24-hour turnaround. You will get a phone call back, whether it's from me or one of the staff, or an email back, whether it's from me or one of the staff. And then we will, you know, move forward with trying to help you in whatever it is that we may or may not be able to help you with. Right. I also want people to understand we're not miracle workers and we're not going to be able to fix everything. We're not going to be able to address everything. And some things are not going to happen immediately. It's unfortunately a very politics and bureaucracy are a very slow moving beast.
Nothing happens immediately, but you have to start the motion for it to ever get anywhere.
Right. And I tell people I already work in constituency services. Cool. All the work that I do, when people call me, I need to get back to them quickly because I don't know what their situation is. They could be in danger. They could be extremely sick and need to see a doctor. They could, you know, be starving, you know, or be hungry and maybe not have eaten for the last 2 days. They may need medication. They may, you know, there may be a problem with law enforcement. There may be like all of these issues. I'm kind of that resource that helps people get through it, whether it's with the police or probation and parole or court, or they need an immediate appointment with the doctor, or there's a prescription that ran out. They're not going to be able to see the doctor to get another prescription. So we need to be able to do that virtually and get it done quickly. Or they may need help paying for a prescription, whatever it is. There needs to be a quick turnaround time. And that's the work I've been doing for years. So it'll be the same way, you know, going into my office. No, it will not just be me doing it, but I will make sure that we have a staff that is capable of doing it and understands that that is important and it's a priority. Right. And, you know, being part of the community to me is also, I have people that I've known 25 years that I still see all the time. And they always laugh and joke. And they're like, you know, it's so funny because being around you now, you haven't changed that much from back then when we all used to run the streets and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm still me. That was me back then. That's me now. The only difference is I'm doing different work. And that's it. I don't have to just survive anymore. Now I'm trying to make sure I help other people thrive, not just survive.
It's important. People are learning to think that survival is the baseline we need to deal with. What's up, Jeffrey?
Absolutely. You know what? I want to dig in on a couple of things with Deja because I feel like, you know, it's a rare chance that, you know, everyday people get to ask some really tough questions, especially on the last leg of an election journey. And, you know, we got a couple of major issues in this country right now. I'm going to start with the economic side because, like, I'm sitting here looking at your platform, you know, and you've been out there, you've seen what's going on. So tell me, what is it that you're looking at when you're looking at the issue with economic opportunities in your area?
So in this particular district, there's a lot of businesses in this district. This is one of the highest income districts in the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. But there's a lot of small businesses here, people that don't live here, but they own a business here. And what I'm hearing from people right now is there are a lot of these businesses were hit very hard by the pandemic. Some of them were either too small or there was some other disqualifying thing where they didn't have any access to the pandemic relief funds for what was supposed to be for small businesses.
Right.
We all know how that went. And now they have huge tax bills due. And they're terrified because they don't know how they're going to pay these taxes. And so I think we need to be taking another look at a pandemic relief plan that is strictly for these smaller businesses that didn't have access to the pandemic relief funds. I think that, and one of those things is, honestly, it's just tax relief. Mm-hmm. But we have to be very careful that we're giving tax relief to the actual small businesses. Mm-hmm. We make these tax relief things too general, and then the larger companies or larger businesses can access them. Mm-hmm. No, this needs to be for the people that are, maybe they only have 6 employees, or it's just them and their spouse, or them and their partner, or them and, a family member running the business. They lost their income and their livelihood too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But now they still owe taxes.
And $50 billion of that relief that was going to go to small businesses rolled back into the next bill because nobody used it, because nobody knew how to access it.
And also, not only that, but the majority of that pandemic, those trillions of dollars, went to big companies. Mm-hmm. Big companies were getting those big checks.
Yeah.
And I feel like there should also be some accountability. I think
they knew how to access. They have the lawyers to access.
So
it,
even
nobody
if they
else
accessed
did.
It, I think they should not be eligible for the loan forgiveness. I feel like those larger companies should have to repay that loan. Like some of the smaller businesses are eligible for the loan forgiveness. I don't think those larger businesses, like we can't go back and say, hey, you shouldn't have got it, whatever.
Right. But going forward.
Yeah, but going forward, I think that we need to make sure that, no, they don't get the loan forgiveness. Nope, you have to pay it back. I'm not saying we can't work out a payment plan with them, but no, they should not get that money free and clear. And we should be offering tax relief to these small mom and pop, what we'll call mom and pop businesses.
Right.
That are still suffering. And now they may have survived the pandemic, and now they may end up going out of business because they have a large tax bill.
And that's the thing, is like, that's not an issue that's unique to just your district. I mean, out here in Olympia, Washington, we saw the same thing happen where, you'd have these large companies that came and they got all of these huge loans from, the PPP, but these small companies struggled to even, get anybody on the phone to help them apply for this stuff.
Right.
And then, after 2 years of, after a year of limited availability, you saw a mass shuttering of businesses, and those who didn't shutter were already just dancing on the edge. Yeah. And the fact is that without, the rollback of a lot of these, lockdown metrics, those businesses would have gone under too. And ultimately, I think that was partially part of the driver of why we saw things open up the way that we did. And we did these weird targeted openings and closings. It's because we lost so many small businesses that will never be recovered. And we're about to lose many, many more. So I do agree that, a lot of these companies that post record, they're large organizations, they post record profits year after year. And, like, for example, when the Lakers got a small business loan, I'm like, I'm sorry, the Lakers are a small business?
Well, I think that's the other thing, right? Like, we can go back and track whoever got this money. And we need to just put that up against the list of the corporations that did report record profits.
Mm-hmm.
And say, wait a minute, so they got money during this? Also, we're not looking at the price gouging that's happening right now.
Yeah, there's that.
Everybody's using the excuse of, oh, it's the pandemic. So everything has jumped by, in price by 30% or 40%, depending on the item. Mm-hmm. And yet their profit margins aren't down. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's another thing. Like, we, during the pandemic, I remember a lot of these small little local corner stores that had masks and had hand sanitizer, and they were selling it for $10 and $15. Boy, they went right up in there and shut them down. But these big companies that are price gouging the entire country are getting away with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's essentially, it comes down to like a too big to regulate, or too many donors to regulate or something. That's pretty much. I've always joked, but it's become less and less of a joke. I think most of us would be fine with lawmakers getting lobbied the way that we do if they wore jackets like they did in NASCAR, and they show us who all their sponsors are, and that way we can go, yeah, that one. Okay, you're sponsored by them. I can't do that.
I used to think so, and then Katie Porter said, "I proudly don't take donor money from lobbyists," and I said, "So it can be done." So no,
it can be done.
I no longer agree. But that's a national issue to me. Is that a local problem?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
So, money in politics, the way that money is raised, who it's raised from, who has access to it, who gets backed, that absolutely is a problem. We do need to change some of these policies when it comes to raising money, because we have too many like you said, lobbyists, and too many corporations and companies and churches and all of them that are investing all these money in candidates so that these candidates will do their bidding. And, let's talk about religion for a minute. Let's talk about separation of church and state.
Ooh, hi, Jeffrey.
Hey.
Any church that has anything to say publicly, politically, should be paying taxes, period.
I don't disagree. That's the thing, is, again, that's actually very common in other countries where, if churches are involved politically, they're getting taxed on it. Personally, I'm the kind of person where I very strongly view that religion and state need to be separated, for the greater good of society. And to me,
that's not just a belief, it's in our Constitution.
Well, it's supposed to be, but here we are.
Yeah, but all those same people that are always screaming, our Constitution, until you say, what about separation of church and state? And then they're like, oops.
Well, not like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think politicians should be able to run off of religious values.
I wish that they wouldn't.
Well, and it's
supposed to be separation of church and state. So your religious values should not be pushed upon everybody else.
And I think, I don't really have a whole lot of great things to say about Joe Biden, but I have more positive things to say than the last administration. And realistically, growing up Catholic, knowing Joe Biden's Catholic,
What makes mulch so lovable? The texture? The smell? Well, it's not just people that love mulch. Your plants do too. Retaining moisture and regulating soil temps. It's the whole package. Guess the real question is, what's not to love? Stop in today for a special buy of Scott's Earth Grow and exclusive Vigoro wood mulches, 5 for $10. It feels like spring savings at the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
Guarantee you that Joe Biden is probably very much anti-abortion, but in his career public policy, he's very much pro-choice. And I think a lot of people tend to forget, it's like, that's how you separate the religious and the state part of it, is that in his view, it is not government's responsibility to determine what a person can and can't do with their body. From a religious aspect, damn good and well that he's on the same boat and believes that abortion is a terrible thing. It's just that he has reconciled that with the idea of separation in church and state.
Which is what a politician is supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like, we as a society are pro-choice. Like, it doesn't matter who we as the individual are. For the greater good, we as a society are pro-choice, because we're always marching towards equality, or the hope and dream or fairy tale of it, and trying to achieve it is the goal, not going backwards. I was thinking that today, like, if Republicans just spent as much time and effort creating an inclusive party as they do trying to like wedge everybody apart, they would be a grand old party,
Who, the Republicans?
Yeah, if they spent more time building a tent as they do isolating people out of it, and the money they spend just trying to divide us, if they spent all that for a greater good, they would be a greater party, But
I have a pushback for that. The money they spend to divide us, the Democrats on the left.
Right.
they are united in what they are trying to do.
Agreed.
Their money is well spent because they succeed in dividing us. Because just like there's the extreme right, there's the extreme left. And the extreme left, the super progressives, the moral, code of the Democrats, of the left side are very much the same way. You either fall in line or we ostracize you and we go up against you.
Or we're going to beat you with flagpoles. I don't think there's a real comparison. Antifa climbed the Statue of Liberty to raise awareness. Like the right doesn't do that. They're
no.
You know what I mean?
But what I'm saying though is that the Republicans do succeed in coming together to divide us. And the thing is, I'm not going after you because we don't align 100%. That's my point. Like, I'm not going, do I agree with some of the tactics from even Antifa? No. Do I agree? Do I disagree with some of their tactics? Yes. Do I agree with a lot of their tactics? Yes.
I just don't like the other sidesism because one side is trying to play within the rules and voice their complaints, and one is trying to change the rules without permission. So I don't like the radical equalization because they're not. It's the difference between an undercooked steak and a poisonous steak to me. Well, I don't want either one.
But both of them can make you sick.
Right. Exactly. I don't want either one, but I definitely don't want the poisonous one.
And that's the thing, though. That's the thing, is that we are spending so much time fighting with each other that we're not coming together to fight the real war. We're busy battling with each other. And I don't want to fight with anybody on the left just because we don't agree on every single thing, or because you don't like the way that I do things. All of my work with the police. All of my work with the police comes out of me and my community being abused for decades by the police.
Agreed.
For decades.
Agreed.
My advocacy started when I pushed back one night after a fight with the police. After years and years and years of being harassed mentally and emotionally, physically attacked, run over with bikes, almost run over with cars, beat up, falsely arrested, all of that stuff. And so I saw that, okay, we have to make a change in here. And so I've spent a lot of years helping make that change from inside. But there are people that are further on the left that come out against me and push against me and do all of that. Oh, she's aligned with the police. And it's like, wait a minute, hold on. I'm not aligned with them. What I'm aligned with is while everybody's on the outside screaming and yelling, I'm the one that gets the phone call at 3:00 in the morning when someone gets arrested, or when someone is being harassed by the police, or if there's a murder that has happened and the police aren't dealing with it correctly. I'm the one that takes those phone calls, and then I pick up the phone and start calling people. And then I have meetings. Then I get everybody on the same page, and then I get the ball moving in the right direction. And oftentimes it's just simply, once people know somebody that has a little bit of a say-so or is seen as having a little bit of power or whatever is watching what they're doing, they do it right. And
yes, accountability, transparency.
I absolutely believe there's a place for the people that are outside on bullhorns, screaming and yelling, climbing, whatever, doing all of those things. I absolutely believe in their right and that there's a place for that. But I have chosen, because of my lived experience, to look out for the people that are still caught up in these systems that we're going after.
Agreed.
And to help make a change from the inside. And I don't think that we should be at war with each other because I'm not doing it your way or you're not doing it my way.
Angry people still have an issue.
Is the same, right? Like we're all trying to get to the same destination. We're just taking different routes.
Right.
Yep.
And that's okay. And so that's what I mean, when I do say stuff like that, Jason.
Yeah, I get it.
I have experienced it myself.
It's not left, right. It's more tax bracket. When you're going up to somebody to solve a problem, it doesn't matter their political designation. You need them to solve the problem.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And that's the other thing. I get people that ask me all the time, well, how are you going to work with people that are fighting for legislation against you? And I said, well, I've been doing it for 2 decades now.
It's no different.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? You know, what we're watching in the federal climate is exactly that issue. They're not working together, and everybody's getting pissed off at each other. And here we are at the midterms, and you see a very real chance that things could swing towards the Republican side in the House. The fact of the matter is that when people don't work together, you don't get anything done. And when people don't get anything done, they're like, well, screw it. I guess we're going to try this other side here and see if they'll get anything done.
Yeah. Or just not at all.
Yeah.
Just tune out.
A lot of people that voted for Trump that I have talked to, that's what they said. In the beginning, they voted for him because they thought, oh, here's something different. Maybe he'll be able to get things done. And I mean, it turned into a shit show, but
but he made some accomplishments. He did some things. It's just he was such a shit show that nobody wanted to support that.
Well, it's that whole broken clock is right twice a day.
Right,
and that's the thing is, like, you can get a couple of things right and still have the majority of what you do just be completely off the wall.
Completely wrong. Like, listen, like the pandemic I don't believe would have reached the level that it reached if we had real leadership.
Thank you.
In the White House.
Thank you. If we had monitoring overseas, it wouldn't have. I mean, it would have came here. We would have known what it was before it got here.
Yeah.
Exactly. And as Jason and I have talked about, one of the bigger things that Trump got right was cutting the red tape on making sure we could get the vaccines moving forward as fast as possible. But outside of that, this whole don't do anything, just let it run its course, or, in some cases, drink fucking bleach.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was just like, what is happening?
Yeah.
It wasn't leadership. It was like, somebody thinking they're the smartest person in the room and having exactly zero qualifications. And I think that's what it highlighted for a lot of people looking at politicians, people who thought, we see a bunch of people who think they're the smartest person in the room, and they have exactly zero experience in the shit that they're trying to legislate.
That's right.
It really is frustrating.
Tell me what part of Deja's life Donald Trump even knows exists. You know what I mean?
None at all.
What is it like to be a Latino in America? Oh my gosh. What's it like to be a transgender person in America? Oh my gosh. What's it like to be an advocate for all of that down on the ground? Yeah.
That's why I'm like, people are like, well, Deja, I just don't know, because, it's going to be difficult for you in Harrisburg, and I don't know that you're going to be able to handle it. And I said, oh, well, okay, well, that's, the funny thing is, me from all of my work. How do you think I managed to get all of that done? I got all of that done because I know how to work with people like that. I know that, I knew walking into these rooms originally 2 decades ago, these spaces were not places that people ever saw a transgender person and never wanted one in there. And here I am in these spaces. I didn't go in there. I wasn't combative. I wasn't screaming and yelling and throwing things and saying, you're going to listen to me. I went in there. I listened to what was going on, assessed the situation, figured out the best way that I could help in this space, who I could build a relationship with, who I needed to give the time to adjust to me being there. And that's what happened. I ended up building all of these incredible relationships because I had to put my personal emotions and feelings. Quick story. One of my biggest abusers in the Philadelphia Police Department in the 90s and early 2000s, I now work with on a regular basis with community stuff. Whether it's during the holidays, providing, meals and stuff for communities, whether it's clothing drives, whether him and his wife just have a bunch of clothes they're trying to get rid of. When I did the food distribution for the undocumented immigrant communities during the pandemic, he gathered a bunch of other officers up to help me unload and load the trucks and vehicles. And so I had to work with this. I'll never forget the feeling I had when I'm sitting across the table from him when I first started doing this work. And he started talking, and I looked at him and I realized who it was. I can't even describe the sensation that went through my body because everything in me wanted to jump up and start throwing chairs.
I understand that.
This is a man that abused me so horribly for years. That at one point, like my own family was begging me to leave Philadelphia because they were afraid I was going to end up dead, that the police were going to kill me. That's how bad it was. And now here I am sitting across the table from this man in a different capacity. But I had to give him an opportunity. I had to see what he was talking about. Yeah. And so it was a slow, it was a slow process. But now we have this friendship. I had 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, I was walking home. It was like 3:30 in the morning. I had just finished work and there was a big fight get ready to break out on one of the blocks walking home. I called him. He was home in bed, but he answered the phone for me. He's like, "Hey, you okay? What's going on?" And I was like, "Hey, are you on duty?" He's like, "No, I'm home." I'm like, "Okay, can you call somebody else? Because there's a big fight brewing right at the corner of this and this. And so if somebody gets there before it gets bad." And so,
that's how you solve this stuff, is by getting there before it gets bad.
Yes. So, but to think that I call this man at 3:30 in the morning and he sees it's me and he answers the phone to make sure I'm okay or see what I need or is somebody in trouble. That shows that, yes, in the 90s and the early 2000s, he was horrible. He definitely, had a bias towards our community, but he's grown and changed. And we have to give space for people to grow and change if they are willing to.
So this is something that gets talked about, especially a lot in our house, is restorative justice. Have you two ever sat down and had the conversation of what your lives were like in the 90s and 2000s and how you got to where you are now? Have you two had that conversation?
No, we haven't sat down and had that conversation. And, the committee that I was a part of, at one point, whenever the deputy commissioner of police, or if there was a new high-ranking police official that would attend one of the meetings, I would use him and I as an example. And I would say, "Hey, here's an example of the work that we do." And I would say, "Listen, this guy was horrible to me back in the day. And now here we are solving things together." And at one point, the head of the committee, before I ended up heading it up, had came to me and they were like, "Listen, you have to stop doing that." And I was like, "Excuse me?" They said, "You have to stop because you're throwing him under the bus." I said, "I'm not throwing him under the bus. I'm trying to make sure these high-ranking officials understand that the work we're doing is real and that it's important, because this is the relationship we used to have. Now here we are working together to solve problems."
This is the example.
Yes. And so I was, oh God, I was so angry, but I didn't respond in the moment because I wanted to be like, "You know what? You can F all the way off. How dare you tell me?" Because that is what I experienced. You didn't have to experience that. Right. And then like a week or two later, the person called me. They were like, "You know what? I owe you an apology for saying that to you. That was wrong." And I said, "Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But everybody knows I'm not trying to throw them under the bus."
Yeah, it's a time and place thing.
Well, and I think that's one of the greater issues that we're experiencing now too, is the idea that somebody can be a real shithead, back in the day, be abusive, be a monster, but are they capable of growth, and are they deserving of that, forgiveness and that inclusion into communities that they abused? Right. And I mean, that's neither here nor there for someone like me to be able to discuss. I think it's all about how a person comes in and tries to not right their past wrongs, but grow so that way they show others how to do it properly.
Yeah, a lot of it is they do not know. Some of it is it's who they are, but most of it is they just do not know. And I always thought long form conversation like this would let people listen and then realize, oh, there's a transgender person that doesn't have devil horns that's trying to eat me, or whatever it is they think that transgender people are. They can listen and they can be like, "Oh, she's cool. Okay." So when they encounter you in person, they're like, "Hey, you're cool." That's how they come into it, So I really,
it's funny. I just had that situation with a big union leader here who, of course we know who each other is, but we had never interacted with each other. And we happened to be in the same space. They endorsed my opponent and they were coming in saying hi to everybody. And so I was being a little bit of a smart ass and I reached my hand out and I was like, "Hey," and I said said his name, Deja. And he just looked at me. He was like, Deja, like, I don't know who you are. And I started laughing. I said, hey, just want to make sure, like just kind of trying to open up the line of communication because, yeah, you endorsed my opponent, but like, there's no need for us to be uncomfortable with each other.
Right. When you win, you're going to have to work with them anyway.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we ended up talking and there was a few things exchanged. We went back and forth a little because he is in a very powerful position. I think he thought maybe that I was
groveling.
Yeah, not as quick on my feet as I am. And so we had a few exchanges and then he kind of started laughing and then he pulls up a chair and he sits down and we start talking. And then like towards the end of the conversation, looks at me and goes, you know what? He goes, you're not what I thought you were going to be. And I started laughing. I said, oh, really? He was like, yeah. He said, you know how you hear some things about people and then so you kind of have this notion of who they're going to be. I said, I get that a lot.
Yep.
He goes,
yep.
Yeah. He was like, yeah, I like you. He's like, you don't give a F. And I said, no, I give as good as I get. I'm not afraid of anyone. Like,
of course you give an F. It's just what you give an F about.
Right. Exactly. And so, now him and I are cool. Like now we've had that interaction and we exchanged a few jabs and, joked around with each other. And it, he's like, I like you. And I was like, well, thank you. Like,
and that's what you have to do. That's what you have to, that's your role in life. That's your cross to bear is to be the first one to walk. I'm visually impaired and it's my cross to bear to walk up and hear people say, so you're blind, huh? And have to repeat the same thing ad nauseum to 50 people at a party. It's your cross to bear to just do that. And so you're making the path easier for the people that follow is the way I say it to my disabled friends. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. That's the whole idea. It's the whole idea.
So I'm interested.
I'm never going to get rich being in politics.
I'm interested in education, but I'm wondering if Jeffrey has any better questions.
Well, I mean, I've got a lot of questions and we only have you for about another 10 minutes, I think. Mm-hmm. So
unless Deja wants to stay longer, that's up to them. Yeah.
If Deja wants to stay longer, absolutely. But I think honestly, like hearing how we bring community together, especially like for some of the things that we've talked about, food security is a big one for me. It's always been a huge one. It's something that we talk about frequently, and to me, especially knowing that reading so many scientific articles about how, when you have access to, the proper number of meals, kids perform better, adults perform better. You have fewer people getting into trouble because you have regular access to food. I mean, there's a book called Food for Peace. And the whole premise of the book is that countries are less likely to destabilize their leaders when they have reliable access to food.
Who knew?
Right? And so imagine, and this is a military tactic book, for crying out loud. So the idea that you wouldn't see that on a community level where, if you had reliable access to food, you would have a lot fewer issues. And so I guess in your experience, where do you see food insecurity at in all of the issues that you have literally borne witness to?
So food insecurity definitely plays a big part of it, but it's, again, I say that's the difference between surviving, right? Like when people are in survival mode, constantly, all the time, trying to find a place to lay their head, trying to find something to eat, trying to, be warm, trying to get out of the rain, whatever it is that they're trying to do. If that is what they spend their life doing, they never learn like the life skills, the skills on how to live. So if we just provide these resources to people, it allows people the space to kind of grow and become what what a lot of people would say is, a productive citizen. And I don't like that term myself, but I use it because other people recognize it. It's really hard to be productive when you spend every day trying to figure out what you're going to eat, where you're going to lie your head, make sure you're not getting arrested, make sure you're not getting attacked by people just walking down the street because they may recognize that you're a trans person, or, you know, making sure, like, a lot of undocumented immigrant people are targets of crimes.
Survival is exhausting.
Yeah. Because people know that they are afraid to go to the police. So I have also spent a lot of my time building those relationships so that when something does happen, I had to walk a young man into special victims a couple of months ago, who had been the victim of basically like a date rape. And nobody knows about his sexuality, so he couldn't, you know, have them come to his home. He couldn't. So I had to arrange all of this stuff so that he could still report the crime, because it was a crime and this person was probably targeting other people. And when you are someone that is so marginalized that the laws are against you, access to healthcare is against you, you know, access to jobs is against you, how do we expect them to then go down the right path? One of the things I say right now, what we need to restore to these communities where we're seeing all this gun violence, we need to restore hope, because they've lost hope. And that is exactly why they are on the path that they are. And it is not their fault that they lost hope. It is our fault as a society that we do not prioritize making sure that the most marginalized have access to the resources necessary to live an actual fulfilling life.
Yeah. But with food diversity, right? Food security isn't enough. We need food diversity. Do you have food deserts in your area?
So, no, not in my district. Absolutely not.
Okay.
Like I said, this is a very high-end district, but in other parts of the city. However, I will say this, and you know, I'm not plugging anybody, but I happen to be friends with this man now. We built a great relationship. His name is Jeffrey Brown. And he opened up several ShopRites and fresh grocers around the city, and he targeted those food deserts. He targeted the most marginalized areas, and it was a smart move. It was a smart business move. It was a great community move. He's constantly supporting different ideas and all of that, so that we didn't have those food deserts around the city anymore. But yes, I will say this. I credit Jeffrey Brown with helping to all but eliminate food deserts around the city of Philadelphia.
Jeffrey, we want to talk to you. Come on Public Access America, because we love solutions like that.
Oh, I'll send it over I'll send him the email information, or send you guys his email, and you can contact him.
Having food in your belly solves so many problems, like a living wage would.
Well, and that's the other thing. He's working on job programs. He's working on, you know, making sure that his people at least make $12 to $13 an hour minimum.
I like that.
And then have access to getting to that $15, $20 an hour point. All of it. Like this man he's smart. He's empathetic. He's compassionate. He is someone that, while not being marginalized himself, has a real open mind and heart to those that are marginalized and how to fix situations. Okay, enough about Jeff Brown, but I will connect you guys for sure, because he'd be a great person to have on the show.
I love that.
For me, it's, you know, these solutions, you know, spreading that information to all corners of the country, that's the kind of stuff that helps fix certain problems, so that way we can prioritize other ones. And
that's right.
You know, and to me, like someone like you, Deja, who's like, oh yeah, I know a person who has done this. Oh, I know a person who, you know, people like you are what help. You're the kind of person who brings community together in ways that, you know, a lot of people only talk about.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in that, and it's worked well for its purpose. it's caused me a lot of flack, but it achieves its purpose. And as long as I stay focused on my purpose and what the purpose of this work is, I'm okay. The moment I lose focus of that, it's time for me to step to the side. So that's why I don't, even earlier when I was telling you about those posts on Facebook and stuff, like, yeah, I could have responded and been like, yeah, you're a jerk. What do you actually do for the community? And I hope they hear this because they know who they are.
That's so funny. like Facebook has any relevance in today's society.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
That's so funny.
Fake internet points don't solve problems.
Right. Yeah. I posted on my whatever.
Yeah.
I just don't. It's not social media anymore. Things are slowly evolving, and I don't think a lot of people are seeing it. And
no, I don't want to say they're evolving. I want to say they're devolving.
I would agree with Deja.
I believe in the positive side of life. Shiva might rush us from one place to another, and it might seem chaotic, but we're going to land where we need to be. And this is a lot of chaos. A little bit
like me. People always say, "Well, why don't you?" And I'm like, "Listen, I believe firmly in the universe and energies and all that kind of stuff. And the universe is going to guide me to where I need to be."
That cop proves my theory. That you over time wore them down with just who you were, and everything normalized and empathy was created, even from the people that don't like you. So where can people support you? I have you on Twitter, right? At Deja4PA, Deja FORPA.
Yes, and it's the same on Instagram. It's the same on Facebook, and then it's dejaforpa.com as well. So on my social media, all except for Twitter, I have my personal and then my political or professional page, which is at Deja4PA, and then my personal is just my name, Deja Lynn Alvarez.
Will you promise to come back?
Absolutely. Will you promise to have me again?
Hopefully, of course.
The election.
Hopefully you're a representative and we're congratulating you, but in either case you're there solving problems. I hope you're there to expand your abilities, because I love who you are. I don't like politicians. I like representatives. You know what I mean?
It's true. So, I'm in the same boat.
So thank you.
I agree with you. I definitely agree with you.
All right. Thank you. I know you have a meeting next, so I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Deja.
So good meeting you both. I hope to see you both soon.
Next month.
You will. You will see us again soon.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Bye-bye.
Bye. And that was interesting. Thank you for listening to Public Access America. You can find us anywhere you find your favorite podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. For our disabled listeners, try Victor Reader, Audible, or ask your smart device to play the episode. And you can check out our live streams every Sunday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for being here.
To those who would tear the world down, we will defeat you. This is our moment. This is our time. To those who seek peace and security, we support you. Yes, we can. And to all those who have wondered if America's beacon still burns as bright, tonight we prove once more that the true strength of our nation comes not from the might of our arms or the scale of our wealth, but from the enduring power of our ideals, democracy, liberty, opportunity, and unyielding hope.
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbow. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, nigga, nobody is gonna hit as hard as life.
Ask not.
Yes, we can.
What your country can do for you.
I have a dream.
Ask what you can do for your country.
My poor little children. Yes, we can.
One day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression.
In this lifetime, you don't have to prove nothing to nobody except yourself.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward.
That's how winning is done.
Welcome to Public Access America.
Yes, we can.
Sunday live streams on YouTube.
I wanted to run out of that tunnel for my dad.
On Twitter,
What?
Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Smart Radio,
Public,
and Spotify.
Yes, we can.
Public Access America. History in the making. Making history in the making.
Do you hear that? The sounds of spring. There's the birds, the spring breeze blowing through the leaves, and the Ryobi Whisper Series blower. And that's the new Ryobi Whisper walk mower. And there's the Ryobi Whisper Series string trimmer, all with interchangeable lithium-ion batteries and gas-like power. It feels like spring at the Home Depot. How doers get more done.